Charlotte, can you start us off?
I'd love to. My name is Charlotte Miller. I'm a first-time author, writer, and the name of my book is Wonder and Beauty, My Journey from Heartbreak to Healing Through the Wonder of Horses. I am a new Idahoan. I just moved last October, and it was at the same time that I moved from California that I pressed send and a completion of this book. It's been a time frame of about a year and a half or 2 years, and I love film because I'm a makeup artist. That's what I do for my day job, and I came from the film business in LA and Hollywood. So I did get into the contest, and I love the 5-minute film. We use it a lot in sending it out. But my book is this was the book that I had to write. I had a literary agent years ago, and I started this writing process over 25 years ago. Since then, that literary agent has passed on. My best friend that actually wrote the book has passed on, and I remember when she told me when we finished that first book, which never got published, she said, the next book you're going to have to write. And I thought, oh gosh, that's never going to happen. But she was right. And it was a premonition, but this book takes place after my son, after many years of being in the court system, is abducted. And this was a story that I couldn't contain or keep in me without writing it. One of the first reasons is, of course, because I hadn't seen my son for 8 years, nor had I had any contact with him. So I wasn't going to die with this story in me, number one. And number two, I found out through writing my book, Wonder and Beauty, and finding my healing through equine therapy in Northern California, that unbeknownst to me, I had been writing a blog since 2012. My son started tracking it, and it starts to track another person. So God, I call it God, Google, and the magic, really, of the internet started to track my son. And as I finished Wonder and Beauty and was ready to move from Idaho to California, my son contacted me last October, hours after he turned 18. So this is a real miraculous journey, not just writing the book, but also in reconnecting for the first time in 8 years with my son, my only child, that was abducted.
Was it a parent abducted?
Yes.
But it's all good now, right? Please tell me it's all good.
There's an update on the book, and this was after I sent it to Balboa Press, and we were finished with it. We were, many edits later, and I wrote a page and a half about the update, and then I had seen my son Darian for the first time in 8 years. So this was really a working journey of reconnection, reunification through the writing of this.
That's amazing.
It is.
What a story.
It is.
What a story. I mean, that's a movie. Who's going to play you in the movie?
I don't know. Amy, I don't know what we're talking about.
I love picking. I actually am really delighted to pick these books. Ron, can you go ahead and pick up the thread?
Okay. My name is Ron Whittaker. I'm also a Boise resident, and this is my first book. And through the learning curve of learning about publishing and self-publishing, it may be my last book. No,
well, let's
not
hope
really.
not.
But, this book is about my 7 years of hiking across Idaho, and it took me 7 years. That we recently had a Idaho Centennial Trail panel here at Rediscovered that Steve Stubner was at, and he's written the guidebook to the Idaho Centennial Trail, and there's a lot of people that hiked the trail in one massive hike. And my experience was different, that it took me 7 years to put all the sections together because of work and vacation schedules and that sort of thing. And along the way, I met a man who was about a year ahead of me in the process, and together we hiked about 40% of Idaho together and made a really good friend. He wound up saving my life near the end of the quest. And so after each section, I would write it down, write the story down. Every hike had seemingly a story. We'd go out and something would happen unusual, something good, something bad, a vehicle breakdown, or any number of interesting things. And so I would write it down. For the most part, that's true. Some sections I had to go back and redo it from memory. But so then I had this whole collection of stories in journal form, but they were not in book form. And so then I had to find a way to link them all together and make it a cohesive story. And I wound up having this experience of someone telling me that Idaho was really flat as a person on the East Coast. And it became this mythical monster, like the Loch Ness Monster. I thought the Flat Ness Monster. And it became the book that by which I was able to put all of these stories together into one cohesive book. And we've been talking about our various experiences of publishers and self-publishing, and the things you go through and learn, and there are things I learned that were good, and some things I'd like to do over, but this is my story.
Thank you.
Elaine?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate this, and I know you, except for you, but you hear it, right? You're here.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I love writing. I grew up writing. I grew up on a potato farm in southern Idaho, and used to write short stories, because they didn't have any sisters, and it was better than hoeing beads. So I started to write. And I majored in journalism at the University of Idaho, and then I went corporate. I had to pay the bills. But after I retired from the corporation and my kids were grown, I started to write books. And I got an agent 10 years ago to do Menopause Sucks. And that's a whole different ball game when you have an agent in the New York house. And so I decided I wanted it easier, and I did my own with Midlife Cabernet. I formed my own publishing company, Mill Park Publishing. And we do good work. And so this one won several awards, and I followed that up with Midlife Happy Hour, and that's a hybrid where the publisher and I both put in money. So I've done all three ways, and it's all interesting, and I really appreciate your support. Rediscovered Books helps the local authors, and there's nothing like it. You can put it out there, but the local bookstores carrying it, that's the biggest honor, I think, for us, and I really appreciate that. But I love writing, and I do writers' workshops, mostly for women, and I have one coming up in April. And the whole writing process, for me, is fascinating. I'm dabbling in children's books. This one's the stories I used to tell my kids. But my target audience is middle-aged women. So my next one to follow up on the trilogy is Midlife Zodiac. And it's a horoscope humor, and I make fun of horoscopes. So that could be dangerous, I don't know. But I'm always open to questions and answers and anything you want to know about either target audience or publishing or writing.
So tell me about what's one of the stories you tell in Midlife Happy Hour, so people know what's actually in these books.
Right, Midlife Happy Hour, it's how we survived our careers. And those of us over 50, we're pretty much done with our careers. And I talk about how it was working in corporate America. I was Idaho's first female television news announcer, and the bloopers that I did, and how hard it was to break into that male-dominated career. And then I worked at Boise Cascade, and again there were challenges, but I kept doing it. And there was a mortgage to pay and kids to feed. And then just how wonderful it is to have my girlfriends, and how we all meet for happy hour. And at the end of our careers, we have to celebrate where we've been, and that we're still alive, and we're not done. And that's basically the theme of this book, is we're not done yet.
So part of what I was delighted with is it is actually both my greatest challenge in working at the bookstore and one of my greatest joys is working with the local authors, because I can tell you that I probably reject 10 to 15 books for every one that I accept, and that number may be substantially higher. It may be closer to 30 or 40 books that I reject for every one that I take. So I read a lot, and I've sat on several national committees. I just finished being on the Indies Introduced and got to introduce books at New York City at the Javits Center, which was really fun. But the piece for me that why I really liked all three of your books is that each of you brings your own unique voice. I'm going to tell them what I heard with these books, because they haven't heard this at all yet. So when I read your book, you were right next to me. You were sitting right at the table with me. There was no distance between your experiences that you shared in that book and me as the reader. And that ability to have such a powerful voice that is so immediate, that feels so close to the reader, was remarkable, and it's why the book is here. That's my. I wanted to tell you that because I don't often do that. Elaine, I've read it all. You have this really skewed sense of just you're like taking something and like, all right, I'm going to make you go look at it this way. And I enjoy your books for that because you're always asking me to go just to take my perspective and skew it. And I'm almost 50, and I'm not done.
No, you're not done.
There's no way I am done.
Nope.
Ron uses the, Author House is a tough place to publish. It's really tough. If you'd asked me before you publish this if you should work with Author House, I'd have said, run away, run far, far away.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I have read, but I don't know how you came up with this cartoon, but this Flat Ness Monster and this character, this guy, I don't know who actually did this drawing.
That's kind of an interesting Facebook meeting
Okay.
with a guy who did caricatures.
Mm-hmm.
And he did one for a friend of mine that hiked across the United States from upper New York State all the way out to California. And he did one of Daniel, and I was like, wow, that's cool. Can I get one of those? And he said, yeah, $20 for full body and $10 for a face. And I said, okay, full body. And this actually was the first original character that he came up with, the hiker with the hiking stick. And
the next book you're going to need to write. And I mentioned that in my acknowledgments, and there was so much that came kind of haunting back to me through the decades where I attempted to write this other book, which was, it was self-help in those days. This was pre-internet and pre.com and the whole thing. And I work fairly well off a schedule. So when Hay House said, we're going to do this, $10,000 author advance, and I was with Wayne Dyer in his last writer's workshop in Maui. And so when I had that schedule and that time frame, I worked as an entrepreneur. I worked my schedule and all of my income around this project because I knew I wanted to get this book into my son's hands. Mm-hmm. That was my first guiding force. Second was the schedule, and then of course being a filmmaker, and thank you for saying that, Elaine, because I see this in film capacity. I do. Mm-hmm. And I'm a makeup artist, and I thought about this a long time. I'm going to be going on a trip this weekend for a destination in Tahoe doing my work. And when I work with brushes and I work with women, what's interesting is words have become my brushes. I never knew that you could create life with words. Wordsmithing, yes. And incredible writers, yes, which I've never even thought about myself as one. So I am extremely honored to be here. But I remember Wayne sitting in the audience and saying, the last workshop was Writing from Your Soul in 2015 in Maui. And he said, and the president of Hay House was up there, and Dorian and so many people, he said, the only thing that matters, there are 550 of us in that room, is that when you write, you have to write from your soul. You'll get the rest of this wherever your journey takes you as a writer or an author. But it's not about making money, and it's not about making your name. It's about writing from your soul. That is the quintessential place. And he says, and one last thing, and there were so many takeaways. There's nothing on my not to-do list. And I remember finally meeting him after following his work over 20 or 30 years. And those two, I kept the day after day after day saying, how do I connect with this? And really, this was the most profoundly difficult thing for me to do, but it was also the most spiritual period of time I've had in my life continuously. And I just kept remembering what he said. So it is one step, it is one day, and then it is keeping on track as far as scheduling goes. So that's how this whole thing unfolded for me.
And you're so right. Every writer knows, write what you know. Your book is what you know. And I can't write about a New York socialite. I would love to, but I don't know that world. I do know growing up on a potato farm, and I do know how to make women laugh. And it's so rewarding for me as a writer to get an email or a review that says, I love this. You know, I was sitting on the plane laughing out loud, and people wanted to know what I was laughing about. And of course, there's always the snarky reviews, but I don't read those. But it's rewarding to make people happy and to make people laugh, and especially women who've gone through the raising of the kids. And I talk about my divorce in here, and I'm not the only one. And yeah, we can survive these things. And life is out there, and we just need to go find it and make a couple people laugh along the way. And I'm not done either. I love writing. I look at pictures, and I'm obnoxious for doing memes on social media. I do memes all the time because I'll see a picture and I want to put something snarky to it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think
most of them work.
Yes, most of them I try. I failed on a few. But if I can encourage you to keep, I know you're a writer and you're a writer, and I want to see your work. You've got a story in one of the books, and just keep writing. It's such a thrill. When I write a sentence that makes me laugh out loud, it's better than anything. It's can I say orgasmic? It's
There are no censors here. Have you been here on the lip rights?
Yeah. And I wrote one blog that went viral. It's called "Don't Fart During an MRI." And when I was writing that, I was just chuckling and my shoulders were shaking, and it was so funny because it's true and it really happened and it went viral. It's been translated in 6 different languages around the world. And I've been writing professionally for 40 years, and I hit the big time with a fart. So I'm exploiting that. It's you write what you know and you follow up, and it's such a joy to have somebody say, thank you, I needed that. Or I needed this for my mom, or I need this for somebody. I love it. It's one wonderful thing to have between your ears. I can't make a widget, but I can write a paragraph.
When you talked about the voice, finding the voice to tell this in was one of the big challenges. But when I finally felt like, okay, I feel like, you know, I was kind of thinking about it, and what kind of voice do I want to tell this in? And I can't really explain, except that I knew when I finally had it, and finding the voice to tell your story is really important, and that's where I wanted to speak and write from, was from that voice, and to hopefully get it woven in through all the chapters, that all these different trail experiences, and weave it all together. So it was a challenge, but also really rewarding.
So we have actually a group of authors here with us, and there's a lot of advice on how and where and to do writing. So it sounds like you work very much from a schedule. What other strategies for all of you, what strategies have you tried that didn't work for writing? What are some of the tools and tricks of making that commitment to being a professional writer? Because there is a difference in the mindset. And what are the things that you had to do to motivate yourself on that Thursday afternoon when it was 105 degrees in the shade, and all you wanted to do was sit in the air conditioning with a nice cold lemonade? So what are some of the things you guys have done to move that? Because finishing a book is an accomplishment. It is in and of itself, before all the editing process. How do you actually keep yourself going?
It was, I heard Elizabeth Gilbert say once, because I do a lot of driving, and so I do a lot of books on tape. But she talked about when the story is coming at you, and you were just talking about the voice, and you see the story, or you feel the story, or you hear the story, all of those coming at you. I had my schedule for this Hay House contest, so that put me on my schedule. But what I found was, and it's very uncomfortable, it's extremely uncomfortable, being woken up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. And in one of my chapters I talk about a dream that I had, And it was so vivid, and I'm not a dreamer. Like, I don't remember dreams. But this thing threw me on stage in it. And I knew, and it was towards the end of the book, I knew that I was at a place where if I didn't write this down, I was almost possessed. Okay? It was almost like being possessed by the voice, by the dream, by what was going to proceed, which I had no idea, because in my book, this dream precedes me meeting my son for the first time, and it happens. It happened 60 days later. So I started trusting the voice or the feeling as uncomfortable and unmanageable, and at all times of the night when it's quiet. So 3 a.m. seemed to be a period of time that I was woken up, and I would keep a pencil and a paper by my bed, and I became proficient at writing on a computer, which I had never been before. I was scared to death. I always thought that if I touched something, it would disappear, and I'd never find it again. But that started to go away towards the end of my writing. One of the things is I always kept a pen and paper with me, and no matter where I was, I write. I mean, I would go to church, or I would go to like spiritual things, and I would just get the voice, and I'll write on anything. I'll take these things and put them home. I'm not, I'm very orderly. I'm a little OCD, but I found that when the voice came to me, if I had a pen and a paper, I would write on anything. So that was a bit of my process.
I agree. I always have a pencil and a paper, even though I've got computers, and I don't go anywhere without my little iPad. I tether to it. But paper and pen, because it's not often charged, you don't often have the electricity or the power goes down. I write things down all that I have it in my car, by the bed, everywhere. We think the best in the shower, right? I have a notebook by my shower, and the hand will come out and write on it. But I also blog.
I have a cool thing for you.
What?
We have stone paper journals that you can keep in the shower.
There you
'Cause
go.
the
I'm
pages-
getting it.
The
Okay.
paper is made out of stone.
Okay,
Wow.
that's
It's
perfect.
really it's just really
Yeah.
cool feeling.
And another habit I do is I blog. I'm a syndicated blogger, and that keeps the brain going. 500-word blog, get it out, and it's like a writing prompt for me. Your turn.
Well, kind of like I said, I had some of my stories were written on emails that were sent to friends. Some of them they were actually in Word, and some of them were just scraps of fragments of things. And so that was the challenge, was to pull everything together into one document. And that's what Author House demanded, was that it was all just on Word and in one document. And so that I had to learn to pull everything together and edit and edit and edit. And I still, you mentioned working with Author House, and as it got down to the end of getting ready to publish this thing, and they were giving me incentives, and I pushed a little faster than I should have, and I just wound up doing an edit on the book. This is the brand new version, so I went, and I thought I was so careful. I thought I was and I didn't have an editor. I couldn't afford the package for one.
This is why I wanted him to come to this, because I'm like, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. To pull this together with, I want to see what you do next.
Yeah.
And
So-
talk to these kids.
So
I need an
yeah, so yeah, it should have an editor, and I thought I was so careful, and I still found, after it came out, and I still found things, and so I just went back and
Always.
redid it,
There's something.
and there's still things I'd like to start over
Yeah.
and
Everything's
redo,
in-
but at some point, also, at some point you have to let go and let it be published. It's like,
Yes.
you want especially if you're a perfectionist, you have to let go and let it be published.
So I'd like to open it up for pieces that you guys would like to know about any of these books, or the authors.
I have a question for Elaine. Since you've published all different ways, I know you said the way the author makes the most money, but aside from money,
Yeah.
what was your favorite publishing process between traditional, self, hybrid, and why?
Doing it myself. I'm in charge of the cover. Menopause Sucks, they designed the cover. I don't like it. It's a lady with her head in the freezer. But when this is reduced to thumbnail, you can't tell what it is. And so all my covers have something big and bold on them, so you can see it at any side. I did this in 4 months. You can get it out and then get on with the next one. This took 3 years. By that time, I had divorced and my name was different. So little things like that make a difference because of my bio in here is wrong. But doing it by yourself. But I have a cadre of help. I have an editor. I have a designer. I don't do it all by myself. I hire people to help me, the professionals, to make it look good.
She's also exceptionally good at marketing.
I'm obnoxious on social media, and I love to speak at conferences. I speak all over, at writers' conferences. The Irma Bombeck conference is my favorite, and I'm just out there. And I go to workshops, writers' workshops, which are so important. And you said you went to Wayne Dwyer's. I went to Cheryl Strade's in Maui. It was incredible. So keep the brain going.
I wish I would have read the books. I've read all yours, but
That's the goal of this, though, is that if
I
you
know.
like-
It's like
Because also you're
read
gonna
the
need to
books.
know
Let's
why,
stop
and
so I
I'm
can
like,
buy
Oh,
the
I
darn
know.
books.
I can't wait. I'm going to be buying these books tonight. So.
Because that is part of the joy of how do we actually continue to build our local author community,
Right.
and how do we continue to improve the quality of the writing that happens in our community, because we are the only guardians of our place in time.
There are so many good local authors, and I'm so old that I am considered a mentor to some people. One of the people I helped is called A.K. Turner, and she and I did 2 books together, about 7 years ago. Bam, she's taken off. You know, she's New York Times. She's putting out books, 2 books a year now, and I like to think that that's because of me, but no, it's because of her. She's a very talented writer. But there's a whole group here, wouldn't you agree?
It is a continually growing environment for us, and I like it a lot. I also like the fact that it's continuing. The bar keeps getting a little bit higher. We can talk about online publishing and things, but one of the things I can say unequivocally, the competition online is continuing to get more and more rigorous, because there's no barrier to putting a book out, and that is part of why I really value our local writers groups, and we have a lot of different groups in the Valley, from poetry, to Death Rattle, to Big Tree Arts, to the Cabin, to Idaho Writers Guild, to nonfiction writers. There are a lot of organizations that promote the development of writers. That's why I asked, what is the biggest hurdle you face, and how do you overcome it? Because there's a lot of times I go to things and I say, oh, how does it, and they say write every day. And I'm like, that's nice, but how do you actually motivate yourself to write every day? What are some of the tricks to getting over your chief self and sitting down and writing? And there's a lot of them. Is there anything that, if you were going to say one thing that you think people need to know about your book, what's one thing that you would say, this is why you should read my book? What would you guys tell people?
The one thing that mine offers that's different from most of the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, Continental Divide Trail, all the long trails of America, including the Idaho Centennial Trail, is that, and I was able to talk to Steven Studner and get some advice from him when I was in the process of writing this, and I said, hey Steve, my book is not going to replace yours as a guidebook, because that's what his is a guidebook to the Idaho Centennial Trail. I said mine is more anecdotal. It's more of like, this is my experience of what happened to me, and how the trail changed me, and how Idaho just grabs a hold of you and won't let you go.
Make sure you know it's not flat.
And make sure that you know it's not flat.
How many miles is the Idaho Centennial Trail?
1,200 miles officially. The part that I did was about 950 roughly. There's a couple of alternate routes.
You should include that in your 1-minute sentence.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
elevator speech, that's right, 50 words.
Elevator speech.
Elevator speech.
Yeah.
You should include that you did all 950 miles. Okay, that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because most people don't know that the Idaho
I didn't
Centennial
know
Trail
that.
is that big.
So, I don't know that. So I would tell people, read my books because you will laugh at the mundane. I have so many people telling me, you make elder care hilarious. Both these books have stories about my dear sweet mother before she died, and how she had subscribed to 100 magazines because she was going to win the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. And how when she passed away in Boise and I had her body sent to Wendell to be buried, they lost her. And so I wrote chapters about they lost my mom's body. And this is an honest story that this won a national blogging award when I wrote. I finally got the call from the funeral director and they had found her body. She was near Bliss, which is a little town by the way. And so I responded, of course she is. But so that is, it's something that happens in my brain. I don't plan it, but I take things like funerals and farts and hair on your toes and I make it funny. And it's a great talent. I enjoy it.
You're the perfect person to be sitting next to because on the other end of the spectrum of funny, and this is uplifting. And it's actually, I just had an Amazon reviewer review my book a couple days ago, and she said, this is nothing short of miraculous. And it really is. The subject of parent alienation and abduction is one that people think that their child is taken out of the country. Mine was not. Mine was taken a couple of counties away. But it's more than that. I think that my book is a testament to anything that's possible. And I know this for sure. My working with horses, there is an energy that horses have, and which is, I believe, another reason why I'm here in Idaho, how I ended up here in Idaho versus someplace else. I will be working with horses, and I continue to do that, and I'll continue to put together something with some other ranchers that I know. But I know that this energetic, magnetic quality that the heart has is an energy and a language all its own. And that and my willingness to put myself out there on the internet and write is how my son finally found the words. And my voice was incredibly important to not just my survival, but to the reconnection with my son. And I've received a lot of information, a lot of feedback from mothers specifically that have had and gone through the same situation. So that continues to fuel my fire to get wonder and beauty out there, because that's really my job at this point, is just to get my story out there and tell anybody that has a missing child or a missing person or somebody that they love and that they care about, we're not that far away from them. Our heart center is so loud in the most beautiful way, and I think that that's what my story is about.
Three very different types,
Yeah,
Mhm.
but all from the heart.
yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. This is the joy of being the bookstore person who gets to read all over the map all the time. I'm like, this is, yeah. But I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
now we get to have some books. And now please tell everybody that when we put these together, they're going to be really fun. I have the next one I have all the authors set for is actually for October, and we have vampires and murder mysteries, and we have one of the detectives from the Napa Police Meridian Police